Hello, everyone. Looks like we've got a few people on the line. Brittany, Dan, Deborah, Laura, Mike, and Miri so far. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm using a different computer. I'm in a different place. So let me know if the sound's all right. Shouldn't see any screen yet, but we might pull that up over the course of the period. Cool, cool. Mike says it's all right. Hopefully everybody else has the same thing. Cool. All right, all right. So I have a very hard stop at 2 p.m. Well, I guess it's 2 p.m. for me right now. I'm in another state. So I have a very hard stop in an hour, and we're going to try to answer these questions as thoroughly as possible because they're pretty detailed. So forgive me if we don't get to yours. If for some reason don't end up getting to one of the questions that's answered, I'll go ahead and write out a long response in the group so that you guys have those questions answered if we don't get to them. But hard stop in an hour, as long as everybody gets that. Let's see. Let's go ahead and start right now. Given that we've got a lot of people here, and Deborah, you've got to leave in a little bit. And yours are the first three questions. So let's do this. Let me know if you can see the screen okay. You should be seeing Facebook and Debbie's questions. Yep, cool, cool. All right, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so I can see it. Hopefully you guys can see it a little better. So the three questions you asked, Debbie, are all very good questions, and I think they all deserve significant answers. So Debbie, the first thing you asked about is samples. Most people, when they're asking for a copywriter to work with them, especially for the very first time, ask for samples. That word means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I've sent links before. I've sent PDF documents with examples of my writing, like pasted as images into it. I've sent live links to live pages. I have sent all sorts of stuff, like posts, pictures of Facebook posts and things like that. So on the one hand, samples kind of depend on the job. What do they ask for? If they want emails and you send them a VSL, it's not going to be received as well. However, if you're going for bigger jobs, you're going for bigger clients, usually they're going to want to see kind of what you can do. It's not going to be for one particular thing like an email or maybe even just an entire webinar. They're going to want to see what you can do. So my advice here for samples is that treat them like what they are. They're the first impression that a person has of you and of your writing. So if you present them in a way that makes it difficult for them to click or find or look at stuff, or if you send them to a broken link, which I had happen once, then it doesn't leave a very good impression for your initial sample. So with every sample, I would actually sit down and spend some time on making your sample document or your sample sheet look professional. Whatever that means for you, if that's like what I did is I pulled a PDF together and put a bunch of the images of my emails and my VSLs and some of the webinar stuff that I've done, and I threw that all into a PDF, and that's what I send out as my sample document if anybody asks. I haven't been asked in a while, but when they do ask, that's what it is. And however, the better it can look, the better it is for you. If they have a really easy time paging through, one of the people who's currently in the mentorship with us is Vikesh. Vikesh has a website that if he's willing to share, it shows a pretty good example of how you can build in a cool little interactive thing for your samples on your website. But it's a very personal question based on what you currently have, what you want to show off, and how you want to be portrayed to your client. Then after that, I'm basically just saying make it as good as possible. Yeah, but you can put a logo in there and make sure the links are on par and maybe explain a little bit about the sample while you're doing it. Like this did this result, or this was for this type of industry or something like that. It always helps to bring a little context and a little bit more professionalism to the samples. But the more professional you can make it, the better. I just don't have a specific like do this, do that exact type of thing because it all depends on what the client's asking for and what you've done in the past. So let's see. The next question is about text sales letters versus webinar scripts and VSL scripts, and the differences and similarities between the two. So that's a really big question, really important question. So I was going to write out a big long answer to this one, but I think I'll just answer it on here to the best of my ability. At the end of the day, sales copy generally does the same thing. It's supposed to capture the person's attention and then capture their interest and then intrigue them to continue reading and then stoke the, like agitate the pain or, stoke the pain in some way, build the desire for the solution, and then present the solution, have a bunch of call to actions and, basically reduce the risk, answer any objections, the standard stuff that a sales message is supposed to go through. That exists with a sales letter, a webinar script, a VSL, a Facebook ad, a Twitter ad, YouTube ad, offline stuff, all over the place. Every single sales message needs to incorporate those types of principles for every message. Now, when you break it down from that level, you start looking at, okay, what is the medium I'm delivering this in? Because a text sales letter can be received in multiple ways. It can be a website page where it's just this long form website. Even that can have different designs. There's parallax design that's really popular right now. Parallax is a P-A-R-A-L-L-A-X. Parallax is a type of design that you see pretty frequently nowadays with a lot of high tech or a lot of design heavy type stuff, and it's that scrolling broad wide website that sometimes has static images in the back, and it looks really slick, really well designed. Then there's the the Andre Chaperon style sales letters where it's almost as thin as a Facebook post and it's mostly text with some images thrown in for flavor. Looks very much like a really old direct response ad or a really old internet marketing or internet type long form sales letter. There's direct mail sales letters where they are opening a piece of mail regardless of what that looks like. Either it's a big or a small piece of mail. They're opening it. The first thing they see is the headline. The next thing they see is the lead, and they're supposed to read through the entire thing. So the context of the sales message, even for just a sales letter, changes how you're going to write it and what it needs to look like. And what I'm getting at here is I can't or should not tell you to do a specific way of writing a sales letter without knowing the big four first. And that's why I teach the big four first and why I teach the fifth stage and all that kind of stuff, because by understanding the context of the message, I can say, oh, okay, it looks like your audience is 65 years and older. They're going to recognize and be familiar with long form paragraph style sales copy that looks like an editorial. So your letter should look more like a news article in the newspaper that they would read rather than one of these new slick parallax designs. Or it should emulate that design if it's going to be online without being as clunky as that 2 or 3 columns. So it becomes very tactical once you understand the big four, but it can't be tactical until you understand the big four. And the same goes for VSLs and webinars. Each are different mediums, each are different types of communication. And a VSL is not just the traditional John Benson style video that you see. It's not the 45-minute hi, I'm John Benson and this is a duck type opener. It's a VSL is just a video sales letter. So if that is a 45-minute read of a video sales letter, if that is the 3 scripts to Jeff Walker's product launch formula, if that's a 2-minute YouTube ad or a 30-second YouTube ad or an explainer video for a startup, all of those things would be considered VSLs because they're video sales messages of some sort. Now, the context behind that is obviously going to matter as well, and so the longer form stuff is going to be different based on the context. With a webinar acts more like a live event. Under most webinar, unless it's an automated webinar, and then there's some give and take, but a webinar is different from a sales letter and a VSL because the webinar, you can essentially understand that the person has committed to a specific amount of time to hear what you have to say prior to actually knowing what you're going to say, versus a sales letter or VSL is something that interrupts them and demands their attention consistently over time and is supposed to entrap them, essentially, from what they were previously doing to reading your sales letter. Very different context there. And when you know the big four, you understand the power of that context. So a sales letter needs to be far, far more punchy and persuasive and attention grabbing and, very ADD kind of, keep continuing to up the ante and keep them engaged, because prior to seeing it, they had no idea it existed. They weren't looking for it. And so they're not going to read the whole thing just by its own merit. Versus a webinar, you've gotten a tacit commitment from the people who've actually shown up to it. And so you can work with that. That's why webinar scripts look very different than sales letter scripts. That's why they're mostly built around, okay, we're here for an hour. I need to make sure that hour is valuable for you while also persuading you in the most effective way to buy whatever it is I'm giving you at the end, which most sales webinars are for. Content webinars are whatever. Like this is a content webinar, so I just started with, hey, let's get started. But, a sales webinar has a flow to it that a lot of people are bickering and arguing about what the best flow is. But long story short, understanding the big four of your marketplace and what they truly want and how their awareness is and what their desires are and what the sophistication level in the marketplace is going to give you a better template or script than anyone who says they have a perfect webinar or some sort of template. Reason being, once you understand the context and how to frame the message based on the big four, you're going to do it more powerfully than someone who's just read a template and is trying to plug things in. So let's see. And that answers this question about the 30 seconds or so. With a VSL, with a sales letter, obviously, yes. It's not as hard or fast. 30 seconds, think about how long 30 seconds is if you're not interested in something and how short that is if you are interested in something. So the way I see it, there's kind of like an exponential curve of attention that you occasionally have to go back into and recapture their attention. But you get half a second in the beginning to capture their attention. Then you get 7 seconds to capture their interest on average, because that's people's attention span. Then you get another 30 seconds or so to intrigue them, to keep, to stay, to continue watching. And then probably another 30 seconds to not bounce them off the boat and basically go, okay, you're super intrigued and you're here. Let me tell you my boring ass story about how I got started. That type of angle makes a lot of people bounce due to sophistication issues. But as you gradually go, you can assume that they'll be there for a minute, or you can assume that they'll be there for 2 minutes, or that they're gradually getting into the message rather than every 30 seconds hitting them with an open loop, because that just gets super frustrating. Repeating the entrepreneur story is good. One thing that I'm going to give you guys in this mentorship, which I see as a trend for 2017, this is something that I'm talking about with my preferred guys and something that I'm talking about with my clients. Moving forward, 2017 and beyond, so not just this year, is I think the breakdown of templates, because you're starting to see a massive pushback at all levels of awareness on these templates that have been pushed out into the world and everybody's using. So when everybody is seeing the, here's my awesome promise, but first you have to listen to me type crap, especially with more sophisticated audiences, they tune out or they bounce. And the answer to that, because the entrepreneur story or the story of pain or the struggle is really important, is to intersperse the story either through case studies or through specific life events while you're teaching the content in any sort of sales, especially webinars. I'm specifically referring to webinars right now, but for all sales messages in general, templates are kind of being fought against in most sophistication, in most marketplaces, unless they haven't been exposed to any form of online marketing at all before now. So a lot of B2B marketplaces, a lot of emerging B2C, that type of stuff. But more saturated, more aware marketplaces are going away from templates because they just see too many of them, and most people don't know how to use them or write to them, and so they just tune them out. But by wrapping the entrepreneur's story and the struggle of what happens into the content of what you're trying to present, you capture their attention with the content, and you also go in, basically you capture their emotions by telling them a story while also telling them the content. So let's see. Client has a VSL. It's been out for a while. Conversions are starting to go down. All right. Okay, yeah, we chatted about this a little bit. So a new lead is a new lead is essentially the first couple minutes of the VSL. And if you get to if you get the person to continue watching the VSL for a few minutes, statistically speaking, they're going to watch through the majority of this thing. Now, leads are tricky because leads are a rewrite essentially. And like I told you before, Debbie specifically, but everybody else because they read the response, rewrites are super tricky because you don't get to have control over the entire buying process. So not only do you have to write a brand new lead different from what is currently working, but you also have to tie that lead into the existing big idea and the existing frame of the sales letter, which may be off in the first place. Now, freshening it up with a new lead or doing that sort of thing is something that a lot of publishers do, and they can see a bump in conversions. So especially if it's a foot in the door with a bigger publisher, doing a new lead that actually gets better results in the control is solid. However, after doing that or while doing that, I would also pitch them on, hey, let me try a completely different angle for the entire piece, and then pitch them on that bigger job. Because, win or lose, now you've actually tried something that you have full control over, and that's something that you can use your big four and your knowledge on, because somebody else's copy is going to make the vast majority of the conversion event happen for you. And I've been in situations with very big publishers who call the lead a failure, even though my watch time was higher on a lead, but the conversions were the same. So, I changed up the first 4 minutes. People watched a ton of the first 4 minutes, like more than they'd previously gotten. However, overall, the conversion did not increase, and that's what they're looking at. So be very aware of that, that a lead is not the only conversion event, regardless of what people say, especially nowadays. So I would pitch a whole second job. Don't tell them they're wrong by wanting a new lead, because it is pretty standard practice to continually test new leads because it's cheaper than rewriting the whole damn thing. But also bring up the fact that, hey, based on my research, you might not be nailing the right core emotion or the right hook here, the right big idea, or maybe it's just tired. Let's try a brand new piece. It's a good idea for an upsell. All right, Mike Renard. Does that help, Debbie? Does all that help? That's a lot of info. Mic check, Deborah. See how it goes. I can't see you if you're writing a question, but I'm gonna move on to Mike. Okay. Had a couple questions from the last module. Number one, you mentioned using different templates for different awareness levels. Where do you find that type of stuff for projects? Long story short, Mike, I either find it in the swipes that I find for that particular marketplace, and that I like and that I think have the same type of feel based on the research I've done, or I go to my own success in the past using a specific template or a specific template that I've created for a different niche or for a similar niche or something like that. Basically, I pull from my experience personally. What I would do if you don't have a repository of previous wins from yourself is to not only study the competition for what appears to be the current best control for a lot of these things, especially if you have bigger competitors, but the swipes in your industry will give you more ideas for the type of way you should write. Now, with that said, though, don't rely on them. Definitely write and create your own stuff. However, I would highly suggest checking out the competition in the swipes. I don't know why this is up. There we go. Second question is interested in what you're saying, right? Hey, just quick sound check. Can everybody hear me? Sound check. Okay, good. Because Brittany said sound was down, but then I wasn't getting any responses in the questions. So hopefully I wasn't talking to myself. All right, cool. Good. All right, Mike, number two, interested in what you say and write for asking for referrals. It does depend on the client for me. Do I want a referral from that client? Do I want to work with people that are like him or that he knows or she knows? Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the answer is no. So my system for asking for referrals is twofold. First, I would be more interested in doing additional work for that client. So instead of referrals, I would ask, hey, do you have any other projects on the horizon? Or, do you have anything coming up in the next few months that we should talk about right now? That type of wording means, we're going to continue our relationship of what we were previously doing. If I don't want to work with that person anymore, but I feel like they would have good connections, then I basically say things like, hey, thanks for your project. Hopefully it goes really well. Please keep me posted on the results of it. By the way, do you have anyone else that you know of that's doing similar projects to this? Because I'm booking out for blank month or whatever it is. So that type of really soft referral question is a yes or no question. If the answer is yes, then you push further for the referrals. If the answer is no, then you just move on. I will admittedly say I don't do a ton of active referral work because I've always gotten the referrals to come to me from either current jobs and who need extra projects or those guys referring out, just because a lot of publishers talk about good copywriters. Number 3, in your current research system, do you start with product research or market research? It depends on my familiarity with the product or the marketplace. So if I'm unfamiliar with the product, then I really need to research the product and know what it does first. If I'm familiar with the product, or at least have done things in the past with the product, then I'm going to start researching the market first. Because you only have to write so many VSLs or sales letters for a chakra product before you start to understand that there are basic similarities between all of them, especially talking to the same awareness level. So now I'm going to go out and research the marketplace and where it currently is for how I'm writing now versus how I wrote a year ago or 2 years ago. That's how so if I don't know the product first, if I do know the product, market first. Let's see. Laura says, how do I think of a big idea? Dan, well, hold on one sec. Dan asks a follow-up to Mike's question. Would that be surface level research, or would you circle back after the target market later? I'm not really sure what you're referring to there. Like if I surface level research on the product and then circle back to target market, or I would like to depending on what I'm writing for. If I'm writing for a client whose product I don't understand, then I want to intimately understand what that product does and its pros and its cons and its features and its drawbacks and all that kind of stuff. I want to intimately understand everything about that product, and while doing that, I can also look at a lot of testimonials. I can look at the content. I can pull out lots of interesting stuff for the copy. So yeah, I think that's going to help me focus whether if I know the product, or I'm sorry, if I don't know the product. But if I do know the product, then I want to go find out stuff about the marketplace first, because I don't want to do research on the product. Basically, I don't want to immerse myself in the product without knowing sort of what the market cares about. So if I do know the product, I go market first. If I don't know the product, then I go product first. That's how I go every single time. However, yes, I do circle back to the product eventually when trying to create features and benefits and fascinations and things like that. Yes. Okay, Laura asks about big ideas with saturated marketplaces. So that is the nature of a a stage 4 sophistication, where many marketers over many months or many years have tried and succeeded and failed at creating new mechanisms, new big ideas, fancy new things, and it just keeps on going. And that's what a level 4 marketplace is, where tons of these marketers and products are competing for the attention of a consumer base that has seen a lot of these things before, and it's a continuous, ever harder struggle to find the next big idea with that marketplace. So at level 4, you're competing with a ton of people. If you're a great copywriter, then you can start, you can find new mechanisms and all that kind of stuff, and grab your little slice of the pie while in that marketplace, which is cool. But at a level 4 sophistication, you have 2 options. You can, well, I guess you technically have 3 options, but the third option isn't beneficial. So the non-beneficial option is to stay in a level or in a stage 4 sophistication where your competition is fighting against you tooth and nail, and a lot of things have been tried, and the market's very cynical and jaded, right? That is a stage 4 situation where I believe, Laura, you're in fitness. If you are in broad level fitness, then you're in an extremely saturated marketplace. So level 4, level 5-ish. So what you don't want to do is sit in level 4 unless you're really willing to compete and win in level 4. And that requires a lot of money, a lot of testing, and a lot of effort. It's worth it if you can get it, but it takes that amount of work. The second option is to try to transition your brand and your product to a 5th stage of awareness, where your marketplace or a portion of your marketplace is identifying with your brand or the person that your brand represents as an identity. That's harder, and that's why I have a whole video on it. So if you transition your brand to do that, then you simply start cultivating the part of your audience that wants to mesh with that identity and grow from there. Because as long as your target market is big enough, then you can continue to attract more like-minded people who want to be part of that identity through additional marketing, additional outreach. So that's the second option. The third option is to splinter and go down into a sub-niche of your marketplace that is not as saturated. With fitness, that's going to be hard because people have been selling fitness. It's a recurring evergreen type desire. Everybody, especially in America, have dreams of being fit and losing weight and all that kind of stuff, and it just keeps recurring over and over again. So a lot of people have splintered. There's a lot of well-known type of splinters where instead of weight loss for women, fat loss for women, belly fat loss for women, cellulite reduction for women, cellulite reduction for brides, cellulite reduction for women over 40, those types of sub-niches, there is still competition there. But as you continue to sub-niche with an audience still large enough to serve whatever marketplace demand that you want to build for your business, then you can start finding things that you can compete in better. Because for everyone who's marketing to brides, there's probably very, very few who are marketing to brides and potential brides in Cincinnati or San Francisco. And now you've sub-niched that. So you can be the company that provides fitness and nutrition for brides in San Francisco. And therefore you capture that piece of the market from the guy who was marketing to brides in general. That's what a splinter works. That's how a splinter works. You basically sacrifice a broad audience in order to go after a sub-niche harder and more effectively. Does that make sense, Laura? Let me know if that makes sense in the chat. The reason that I don't bring up the big idea stuff is because it's hard. How do I do it? I do a ton of research. I do a ton of research. I do a ton of competitive analysis. I talk with a lot of fitness people or people who are in that niche, and I start to figure out what are the unanswered questions, what are the existing pains, what are the current beliefs, and I build my big idea from that. And it's hard. It's very hard. Okay. Yes. Niching down is the easiest way to deal with a saturated marketplace. Yep. You're welcome. All right, Scott. Let's see. So market research on matchmaking services, for example, it's more about human needs, wants, and desires than looking at product review on Amazon. Um, so let's see. To answer your question, if there are any sites or forums that do reviews of matchmaking sites, absolutely read those. I'm not sure of any because I don't operate in this niche, but if there are those, then go look at them. Absolutely. There are lots of micro niches in dating and relationships for obvious reasons. Um, there are core needs in every marketplace. I mean, like we talk about with the primal desires, everybody's core desire has something to do with, sloth, gluttony, lust, envy, pride, wrath. Like they all have something to do with that core word, but how they define it in their own existence and reality is the difference maker. Somebody with pride over here can be different from this lady with pride over here, and this copy looks nothing alike. So it's important to dig down, and with your service in particular, it sounds like you are a matchmaking service for anyone, I guess adults or slightly older adults, maybe not like, the 25-year-old Tinder crowd, but the adults who are looking to have someone to help them find a mate or help them find their person or just someone to help them find a companion. So the need is a little more niched, but the demographic data is ubiquitous. It's huge. It's everyone or everyone who has that particular desire. So to do market research on them, you're dealing with I would start first at awareness. How aware are they of their desire for matchmaking as a service? Like, matchmaking services are very, very different than dating advice, right? If you go to a matchmaker, you want someone else to do the work for you to find you a person that you are probably going to click with or that you want to, and you don't want to go out and play the dating game. You don't want dating advice at that point. It's not related in their mind. So be aware of what you're selling and also the awareness that they're at for that particular service. So are there people who are getting dating advice right now or looking for dating advice who would probably be better served by matchmaking? That yes, there are. And you can target your copy towards that. Say, hey, you keep getting this dating advice and nothing's working. Why not? Well, it's probably because you haven't never had a professional sit down with you and actually ask you what you want or do that kind of stuff. And you frame the matchmaking in that way. That's one way to do it. But in this case, you have an extremely broad initial marketplace, but with a near infinite way of sub-niching down and going after specific desires. And one of the hardest things to do unless you're already turning an awesome profit right now with your matchmaking service, is to capture that broad marketplace in its entirety. There's going to be a very, very substantial part of the market for matchmaking services that does not feel like a generalized matchmaking service is for them. They need to hear that it's for their type of person, like Christian mingle or Muslim dating or gay or transgender type dating, like the types of people who they identify as. They need some sort of special treatment rather than just matchmaking. And I think that's going to be critical to the success. Or, if you're converting really well, then just dump the ads on. Like, buy out every other competitor who's there and run them into the ground. That's one way to do it if you're converting really well. I mean, it's kind of ham-handed, but it does work. A lot of companies do that. So let's see, templates. Okay, so both. When I say templates, I mean any sort of pre-made fill in the blank and or bullet point list of what you need to include in your copy when. That is a template. The 12-step template is obviously more flexible than, one of my old mentors, Yannick Silver, had a product called Instant Sales Letters. And Instant Sales Letters is a service that literally gives you a document, and the shit that you need to change is in red, and the stuff that you leave in is in black, and you change what's read, and now you have a sales letter. So that is also a template, but both of them apply, because for every person who bought instant sales letters from Yannick, which was thousands, and went out and sold a supplement because of that, or have used that, or a MLM or a dating website or something like that, for every person that has done that, thousands of people in that industry or in that marketplace have seen that template now and have not only raised the awareness and sophistication of the marketplace, as all advertising does, but made them specifically immune or resistant to that language of that template. It does not continue to convert. So be wary of templates, especially in 2017 when everything's connected and everything is very, very visible. Used to be that templates were not as well used because you couldn't swipe them as easily, because direct mail was harder to swipe from. Now it's instantaneous to swipe something. It's extremely easy. So VSLs that I've written have gotten ripped off within a week or two. Full on VSLs with like professional intros and everything. They've been ripped off within a week or two. So it's quick nowadays. Let's see, Dan. 2 questions from Dan. When it comes to a big idea and unique mechanism, are these often the same, and can they both exist separately in the same piece? They are not the same. Sorry. ED's thing kicked me down the page. So yeah, let's answer this first one first. So the big idea and the unique mechanism are not the same thing. The big idea is a philosophical concept for your piece. It is essentially, I can't explain it in any better way, it is a big idea that holds your entire piece together. So it's a statement, it's a provocative question, it's a mindset, it's a mentality, it's a controversial factoid, or controversial new thing. Like, it's something that grasps the attention and the interest of the reader or the watcher or the viewer with its newness, its uniqueness, and its persuasiveness. Because the idea that pops into their head is one that they haven't heard before, but they're still really interested in hearing about, and it pervades the entire piece from headline to call to action. And that's the big idea. Versus a unique mechanism is a specific thing that you can find either in research or in the product itself that is more useful for selling the big idea in a later stage of in a later stage of sophistication marketplace. So the big idea is a big idea for any piece of copy anywhere that needs to be there if it's going to be like this dominating piece of copy that you mail for a while or make a lot of money from. And the unique mechanism is something that you find in the research of the product to help you better sell the big idea when it's a more saturated marketplace. So to give you an example of that tactically, a big idea can be something like Jeff Walker. Jeff Walker's big idea was, it's not enough to what was it? Growing slowly is the kiss of death. In order to survive, businesses must explode, or something like that. Some sort of power word to describe launch. Because Jeff Walker's thing is obviously the product launch formula, but the main idea was growing slow is the kiss of death, or starting slow is the kiss of death for a business. And in order to survive, or in order to dominate, they need to explode on the scene, or they need to generate a huge splash, or something like that. It's a unique idea, and it's a big idea, especially in a marketplace that values incremental improvement and split testing and all that kind of stuff, versus what they have for their big idea. However, a unique mechanism would be something to the effect of, if Jeff Walker came forward with PLF for Facebook, like how to run a PLF launch just on Facebook, that is a unique mechanism because the marketplace is saturated with like consultants and marketers and things like that. If Jeff needs a new angle for his thing, then, which he doesn't, he's at stage 5 right now, but I'm just using this as an example, then he would incorporate a unique mechanism, which is, the $7 million Facebook launch or something to that effect. That's the unique mechanism to explain his big idea. Does that make sense, Dan? If that makes sense, let me know, but I'm going to answer your second question. Success in freelancing is largely impacted by inner game factors. Have there ever been any mental shifts that you found transformative or really took you to a new level? Not mentioned the 10x training. Okay. Yeah, great question. I had to think about it for a second. There's been tons. I think a lot of people place a lot of value on like the one shift or the one thing, but the fact is, guys, my mindset and my mentality on this stuff is changing and growing every single day. I might read something in one book or an article one day and that will redefine how I view one thing, and then it will change how I speak to clients, and I'll get another client at a bigger price or something like that every day. Maybe not every day, but often. So to narrow it down to really big ones, I think that the mental shift that was most powerful for me when I was first starting out is that what I was writing and charging for what I was writing had nothing to do with me and had everything to do with the value I was giving to a client. Like, my value was not my value. It wasn't like how I felt about myself. It was the value I was giving to the client and how they perceived that. So for me, at the time, I felt like, my copy was worth $300 a sales letter because I felt like I didn't have any experience. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't write. Like, I felt all those things internally. And then I write my $300 sales letter and send it off to my first client, and he makes like 15 grand from it in 2 days. And I'm like, oh, okay. And he continues to make money from this day, to this day. So it took me a while, but it reframed my view on value and reframed my view on what I was actually going to be presenting to the client in terms of what I did. So, I don't feel bad about increasing my prices as long as I feel good about the client that I'm taking on, and I feel good about the fact that I can actually improve their business. So that's one main thing. Another thing is that I've become a little more hardened by some experiences I've had in business. So my trust in people has been reduced a significant amount. And I feel like coming into freelancing with a certain amount of naivety is good, so you don't get scared away, but also very painful if you do it wrong. So one of the most transformative things for me in that regard was to realize that at the end of the day, it's not me and a buddy, and my buddy's giving me money for copy. It is a true business transaction, and whatever happens is related specifically to business. So I don't hold grudges anymore, but I also don't, like, if I do business with someone, they're not automatically my friend, if that makes sense. So those are two, I guess, shifts that I can come up with off the top of my head. But the second one's a little more cynical. Not a lot of people like to talk about that. All right, Scott. And it looks like somebody's typing a comment, but I can't tell who, or it might be Edie writing stuff. So Scott says, will you please consider spending some time in the next few weeks teaching us how to create a 10 to 30 email sequence or launch a new site or product? Are there templates you follow? For example, email 1 does this, email 2 does this, email 3 to 5 does this. So you have Ryan Dice's thing, the nuts and bolts. So, okay. I can, but that kind of goes against what I just talked about with templates. The second I teach you guys, and I understand that this is a small course, but the second I teach you guys something and you go out and do it in your industry, then it's going to lose its effectiveness, or it might not be effective based on what your industry is because they don't know what the big four are. I am hesitant to give away templates that have no context. Just ask Mike. I had to ask Mike a ton of questions before I sent him anything that he was asking for a current client. So I guess let me think about it. Let me think about if it aligns with what I want to do with this course, because it is not included in the content of this course, and the two remaining modules at the end, how to get high ticket leads, how to sell high ticket clients, are the content that I'm creating for this course new. Let me think about it. I don't want to commit to anything yet. All right. I don't see any more. I don't see any more questions. Nothing in the chat. So if that's it, everyone, we'll end this a little bit early, and I'll have some time to rest up before I head to my next thing. And I appreciate all your attention. I appreciate your time getting on with me today. So the assignment is due Friday at midnight as normal. If you have any questions, weren't able to post them on here, or weren't able to post them on time, or you're watching the replay or whatever, post them in the group and we'll see if we can get to them before the next Q&A. Other than that, everybody have an excellent weekend. Happy New Year to everyone. And I'm excited to that we're in the home stretch of this course. So I think there's going to be some cool things again. Everybody have a great day.